everyone. I'm so glad you're joining me on Royals, Rebels, and Romantics. Thanks for listening and watching. I'm thrilled to bring you a conversation I had with Rose Bakewell about high tea, cream tea, and all things tea. I'm going to ask you also to stay tuned afterwards for an announcement about a change in our format. So I'll see you again on the other side. Enjoy my conversation with Rose Bakewell. Welcome, everyone, and thank you so much for joining us. I have a treat, literally a treat for you today. We're joined by Rose Bakewell and you'll see behind me, Mrs. Bakewell's, and this is going to be such a fun discussion because it's all about something we love about the British lifestyle, tea and scones. So I'm really excited. Welcome, Rose, and thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you so much for having me, Carol Ann.
Oh,
I noticed you said scones and not scones.
well, I'm trying. So tell us about you and how you got so interested in tea and all that it represents.
Well, wow. That's so I'm sure a lot of girls and women like to have tea,
Mm-hmm.
an afternoon tea. When we're little, we play, tea party and things like that. Um, but that aside, I love baking, and that was my true passion, baking, and also gifting. I would actually make scones and clotted cream and jam, homemade clotted cream, and I would pack it up and gift it to people for Christmas, like my son's, Cub Scout leaders and teachers and family members. And it was just a really nice, unique gift to give. And yeah, that's really how it all got started. Because people were telling me, you can't get scones like these.
Mm-hmm.
You can't get scones like America because American scones are very different.
Right.
They're triangular with, like sugar glaze or sugar toppings. And yeah, so English scones are very different where they're fluffy in the middle and,
Mm-hmm.
they're meant to be eaten with clotted cream and jam. So yeah,
Right.
that's how it all got started.
Right. And so that led to Mrs. Bakewell's, again, a little bit of a visual aid here. So tell us about your business and how that got started and what it offers.
So our cream tea boxes come with 6 classic English scones. They're authentic English scones, and a jar of clotted cream and a jar of Beaumont jam, and 6 tea sachets and 12 mini bamboo spoons. The reason we use Twinings tea is because that is it has the royal seal of approval. And
Right.
I feel like if it's good enough for the queen, then it's good enough for us, right?
Absolutely.
So Twinings is apparently her favorite tea. So
Oh,
yeah.
that's good. That's good. So you mentioned the Queen, and one of the things I think we probably all enjoyed as British history fans during the Jubilee celebrations just last year. It's sort of hard. So much has happened since then. It's hard to believe, but just last year, of course, last summer was the big Jubilee celebration. And I understand that it was a surprise to everyone, including other members of the royal family, that wonderful video the Queen had with Paddington Bear having tea. Right. So, in the midst of the Jubilee, the essence of the British royals, and here we have a little tea party. So, how has tea become such a symbol of the British culture? And, we know that the Queen did love tea, but how has that become such a British symbol?
Well, so tea was brought to England in the 1600s. King Charles II at the time married his Portuguese wife,
Mhm.
Catherine a Braganza, and apparently she was very seasick, and she requested some tea because it came as part of her dowry. And so there was tea around that time, but it wasn't until the 1800s, really, specifically 1840s, when the seventh Duchess of Bedford, Anna Marie Russell, she started getting this like she was getting the sinking feeling, and she was just very hungry around 4 or 5 o'clock, because lunch was breakfast was very early, and then dinner was at 9. So she was just very hungry around that time. And so she requested her maids to bring her some bread and butter and cakes and things like that, and some tea. And that's how it really got started. And I mean, I wasn't there, but this is, what you read.
Right, right.
Queen Victoria was a very close friend of hers.
Ah,
Well, Seventh Duchess of Bedford, she was also she was the Queen's one of her ladies in waiting.
okay.
So they were very close. And she picked up on that, Queen Victoria, and she started having her own tea parties. And I think that's where it really resonates with the Queen Elizabeth II, because that was her grandmother.
Hmm.
Um so yeah, her Queen Victoria loved tea. She had Victoria sandwiches with her tea, or Victoria sponge cake, whichever
Hmm. Hmm.
you call it. And it was named after her, for her.
Right.
And yeah, that's
Well, and Victoria actually was so interested and dedicated to promoting the royals as a family on the throne and almost just
yeah.
like us. And so, lots of family images that were distributed. And as photography came in, Victoria
uh,
was
I hope, yes.
very
Christmas
aware.
tea, and
Yeah.
yeah.
So she would have shared her love of tea and that tradition. I mean, that's a really good person to have behind tea to get it to really take off and be something that people picked up,
Right.
right?
Right.
And then of course, so it passes down through the royals, but also we see in households all over the notion of tea and stopping for tea and stopping work.
Yeah.
So I remember when I was working at Folger Shakespeare Library, which is here in the States in Washington, D.C., but of course, as a Shakespeare and British oriented library, there would be tea every day. Workers and researchers were invited to the tea room, and there would be tea and a break, and everybody would get to come and talk about what they were working on. And it was just a break that was part of everybody's day.
What did they
And
serve? A full afternoon tea, or was it just
it was not a full afternoon
no?
tea. There were always some cookies, but it was
Oh,
not the
okay.
full thing. But there was tea, and you could just sit, and it was a wonderful tradition and were really fun. On my very first day of work, that was something I very specifically remember, was someone in the office saying, "Okay, it's tea time. Come on, Carol Ann, let's go."
Oh,
And I said,
that's
"It's
great.
what?" And it was wonderful. Yeah.
It's a very welcome break, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
'Cause we have
Mm-hmm.
such lives, and we're
Right.
just so busy, and just wake up in the morning and everything is just go, go, go. And it's really nice to have that time for yourself.
Right, right. And it really, I know yesterday, so I was fortunate enough to receive, and this was my actual box back here, receive a box of these wonderful scones. And I have to tell you, my body now at 4 o'clock is saying, okay, let's go. So you can train yourself really quickly to count on that little boost in your afternoon, and it's a perfect time. So as tea became more of a tradition in British culture, what do you think makes it so fascinating to Americans? Because that's what you're doing, is sharing this idea with Americans, right?
Right. And I know that they have tea parties here in America.
Hmm.
It's just not it's not the same though, because you go to the Ritz, even actually, my friend threw me a baby shower at the Ritz, a tea
Oh,
party.
great. Uh-huh.
Um, this was almost a decade ago.
Okay.
And, it just it's beautiful, it's lovely, but it's not they didn't have the scones and clotted cream and jam, so cream tea is really the best part of afternoon tea, isn't it? So,
Right. Yes.
'cause there's, finger sandwiches and then scones and clotted cream and jam and then pastries and desserts, and, it's just I think, Americans view it a little bit differently. They don't know exactly the I probably shouldn't say that.
No, that's all right. That's all right.
But, I guess I'm not I because it is, this is just between you and I, but it's just, like, a little bit distant, I think. It is kind of like a fantasy, isn't it?
Yes.
You read about it in books, you read about it in, or you see it in movies and TV shows, and it's just something that we can't completely grasp because it's not here. It's just very different. So
Well, and you could see that with a queen. I mean, there's a very specific way this is done. Of course, Paddington stepped in things and got it a bit messed up, but it's just a very traditional. So I have to ask, one of the big debates when you're having clotted cream and jam with your scones is which comes
oh goodness.
first. So what do you think, Rose?
Man, you're gonna start a war here.
I
Okay.
know, I know. This is very controversial. So I know
It
we're
is.
really treading
It
on dangerous ground.
it is. It's really Devon versus Cornwall. Yeah. And you know the difference. So in Devonshire, in Devon, it's always clotted cream first and then jam on top. And then in Cornwall, the Cornish method is jam first and cream on top. And I'm with the Cornwall. I'm with Cornwall.
Okay, okay. All right.
How about you? How about you,
I'm
Caroline?
actually with Devon. So
You are? Okay.
yes. So,
Why?
well,
What
because I tend to because you can't often get clotted cream in the States, I want to make sure that gets on there in a really nice amount. So I'm a little more generous with my clotted cream when I get it. And I just put a little dollop of jam on the top.
really?
Yes.
I would think if you do it the other way around and use that, the Cornish method, it's like a dollop of clotted cream. So it's like a big
A big clunk.
I
Well,
don't-
I spread it pretty thick. And it may be just I don't know, maybe the look. I like that little bit of splash of color on the top as I'm just about to take a bite.
Either
So
way, it's great either way. The reason
it
I
is.
do it this way is because I've noticed, I know this is a little odd, but when I take that first bite, I don't like my teeth sinking into the jam because
Okay, okay.
so I like it to coat, I like the clotted cream first. Um, I'm not sure, but I just and also when I eat, fresh scones, it's warm. You're supposed
Mhm,
to get warm.
mhm.
And the clotted cream tends to sort of melt
It
into
does. It
so
does.
I don't like that part.
Okay.
And
All right. And I
that's
have noticed that. Yeah, it does melt.
it does melt. And so it's like the jam is supposed to be kind of like a barrier and protect
Oh.
the clotted cream because in Cornwall, oh, Cornish clotted cream is incredible. Have you ever been
I have
to
not
England?
been to Cornwall, so this is now part of my next plan.
Rhoda's is the best clotted cream it's Cornish clotted cream
Mhm.
and delicious, and it has that crust on top. It's a golden
Ah,
crust, and you're really supposed to savor that. And
okay.
when it's supposed to be it's the what is it? Oh
Sounds like the
God,
crowning glory
it is
of your
kind of glory. Thank you.
yeah.
Also, the queen eats it that way too.
Oh, well, then I'll have to change. I will definitely
That
try
way.
the other way next time. Okay. All right. You have convinced me to at least try. But I do like that idea of it's the crowning glory.
It is the crown.
Okay. that's great. So that's one of the tips. I was going to ask you some trivia and tips. So that's a big one, is what order. And you mentioned that traditionally you would have the scones warm.
Yeah.
So I've noticed even in Britain, when I've had tea, often they don't come to you warm. So, what is it, just because that's when you have them somewhere else, you're not having them at home, they tend not to be warm?
Well, they cool really quickly,
Okay.
it's quick bread, but they also are supposed to wrap it in a towel to keep it warm.
Ah, okay.
And napkin, did they do that when you had
The last time I was at a tea shop, they did not do that,
not
but
do that?
I will watch for that. I went to a really lovely tea in Glasgow, and it really was delicious and fun and lovely, but it did not come wrapped. So I'll be looking for that next
Oh,
time.
what kind of scones did you get?
I'm plain. I'm a big fan of plain scones. I know they have all kinds of fruit, and you offer various fruit scones as well. I just am a big plain scone fan. I'm just a simple girl, I guess, in that way. But a good layer of clotted cream, which I'll
Classic
now
Click
try.
are, bestsellers, so
Oh, okay. Okay. That just seems, so traditional.
I think a
Now,
lot of mhm.
go ahead.
So I think a lot of people would agree with you with the classic plain. Yes.
Okay. Well, good. Good, good, good. So I'm going to ask another tip. So you've mentioned that there's a difference, I know, between what's called a cream tea and an afternoon tea, and then sort of a oddly named, in a way, high tea, because that sounds like just a fancy tea. So can you sort of tell us the difference, the real difference
Yes,
in
of course.
those?
Yes. So in America, a lot of people call it high tea. A lot
Right.
actually, most people call it high tea.
Mm-hmm.
But high tea is actually it's really dinner. It's not afternoon tea. They refer to afternoon tea as high tea. Um, and so the difference is cream tea is it's scones with clotted cream and jam and tea. And afternoon tea is finger sandwiches, scones with clotted cream and jam, and then pastries and mini cakes with tea. And then high tea is really, it could be all of those things, but with um, hot, it's really like a hot meal. So they
Okay.
would have a lot of meats in there, meats and vegetables and things like that. So I guess if they have a lot of savories that have like pork pies and things, you could call it high tea, but it's high tea was really it's really just dinner because um you would have it at a high table, at a dining table, as
Mm-hmm.
opposed to afternoon tea where it would be at a low sitting table. So like kind of like we would call it a coffee table. So that's there's a very big difference.
So the high in high tea really refers to the table,
Yeah.
not the fanciness of it, because I think
Yeah.
in America we tend to think of it as, oh, it's a fancy tea, so it's high tea. But
Right.
actually, it's a high table, which is your meal, where you would eat your meal at a
Yeah.
high
With
table.
dinner,
Yeah.
really.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. And tea is served at a low table,
Afternoon tea.
afternoon tea. Okay. So
Mhm.
your afternoon tea would be at a low table, and it could be a cream tea or an afternoon tea. Is that right, in the afternoon?
Yes, but it could also be so afternoon tea could also be served at a regular table, like a dining room table, but it would still be called afternoon tea, not high
Okay.
tea.
Okay. 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 All right. So what we think of as tea, I think I've been to the Ritz here in the States. Um, it's more of an afternoon tea, even though I believe they called it high tea.
It's afternoon tea,
It
yes.
is afternoon tea because there were finger sandwiches and the scones and clotted cream and then some pastries.
Yes, and
Okay.
that's the order in which you're meant to eat.
Okay. Oh, okay. Okay.
Mhm.
So, I mean, that was the order of the plates. So we sort
Yeah.
of did that because it was on tiers. Okay.
Yep.
Okay. So you end with the pastries. Okay. All right.
So
Fabulous.
in my children's book, I have a children's book called Lottie and the Tea Party. I
Yes.
make sure that I had my illustrator. I was like, the finger sandwiches have to be on the bottom, and then the
Okay.
scones, and then the pastries on top.
Okay. All right.
No, that's the order.
That's the order, and they're separate, right? They're on separate. When they come tiered, they're on separate plates. Okay. Now we've talked quite a bit about the scones and the jam and which order and all of that. Is there any specific tradition associated with the finger sandwiches? I know that I often get cucumber sandwiches. And then that, of course, makes me think of the play, The Importance of Being Earnest, where there's a big discussion about cucumber sandwiches. So, are cucumber sandwiches really part of a traditional afternoon tea?
I believe it is. Cucumber sandwiches, and there's also cucumber cream cheese sandwiches, and then there's tomato and tomato and cheese.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Might sound funny to people here, but it's that's another
Mm-hmm.
popular one. Coronation chicken is another one. Salmon, smoked salmon, that's
Okay.
also a very big. So there are very specific ones that are tradition, and I think cucumber cream cheese out of all of them are
Okay.
probably yes.
Now, what about how they are cut? Because I have read that there is a traditional way to cut them and that it's not necessarily the way we might have seen them in the States.
Yep. So I think a lot of people here in the States, they cut them in triangular shapes. They should be more like fingers. So they should be rectangular. But at home, you would make them square.
Oh, okay. Okay. So
And at home,
shapes matter.
mhm, and also you would have at home, you wouldn't necessarily have the three tiers. You could, of course, you could do whatever you'd like, but it would really just be on plates and just separate plates, all same level.
Okay.
Yeah,
Okay. Okay. So even at home, you would serve them
a
on
little.
separate plates.
Mhm.
Oh, lovely. All right. So those are the sandwiches. Now, when you come to the pastries for the very final touch, are there, this is where I personally just have seen a lot of variety.
Yes.
So, is there sort of a tradition or certain pastries or treats that would be included or not in a traditional afternoon tea?
Yes, I think anything small,
Okay.
so slices of very small slices of Victoria sandwiches and pastries such as so a lot of like, tarts
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
and um, I think now they're also adding some French macarons, but that was a tradition.
Okay.
That was a
Okay.
tradition. But yeah, so little pastries and mini cakes.
Okay. Pastries and mini cakes. Everything would be finger, like just big enough to eat in a bite. Yeah. Small bites.
Bites.
Okay.
It has to
Two
be, yeah,
bites.
bites. Mhm.
Okay. Okay.
Small, dainty.
Yes, so you can be very dainty. All right. Oh, this is marvelous. So we have heard about your company. We have heard about the history of tea. And I think maybe now we understand a little better, especially when we know that Queen Victoria was so fond of tea and sort of
Mm,
really launched in some ways or made helped make tea popular. Let's say it that way, helped make tea and afternoon tea popular with the royals and also with the country. And
mhm,
now it's maybe a little easier to understand why um, in the celebration of the Jubilee that the Queen would have been shown having tea with Paddington there as the symbol of her reign and the symbol of the royals. So that's really helpful.
apparently she had tea at 5 o'clock every day, no matter where she was in the world.
Oh,
Which
that's
is amazing.
wonderful. Yeah, that's a really so imagine that because she traveled everywhere. So she would have tea at the same time
Yes,
every day.
5 o'clock. So I think it was her chef, Darren McGrady, who said that she would have tea. They were on the Royal Britannia. I don't know if they were in Australia, they were somewhere, and it was 5 o'clock there, 5 a.m., but it was 5 over in England. So she
Oh,
was
wow.
making scones at 5 o'clock.
So they're 12 hours different. So it was her 5 o'clock. And so she's having her tea.
Right.
Oh, that's wonderful. That's wonderful to think about. So this is a tradition that we could adopt and then take with us wherever we go.
Yes, yes.
So now that everyone is very excited about adding this to our, plus it's just like a fun meal we can add to our day. And it really can be fun and elegant and restful and just a time for yourself in our busy, busy lives. Very humane and treating ourselves well. So this brings me to Rose and your company. How can we experience what you very kindly, and thank you again, sent to me, a cream tea box? So tell us a little bit about that, and I can reach back because they come in these wonderful containers. So
So sweet. That's
tell us all about it. I'll put it back.
so you can get our cream tea boxes at mrsbakewells.com. And we have 4 flavors: classic plain, cranberry orange, blueberry lemon, and Zante currants.
Mhm.
And it's really it's we have those 4 flavors because plain, of course, classic. That's a classic. We have to have that. And then we have the Zante currants because currants are very um, that is very
Mhm.
traditional to have in scones, but really in England they use sultanas. Have you had sultanas before?
I have, and those are very good. Yes.
Pretty good too, but we chose Zante currants because they don't have any preservatives and they don't have any.
Oh.
They're not treated like the sultanas are. So we
Mhm.
choose very clean ingredients. So those are for people who like fruit, but who don't like citrus zest because some people don't like zest. They don't like the
Mhm.
scent.
Mhm.
So we have the orange and the lemon, and um they're all zested by hand. They're
Oh,
all
wow. Okay.
freshly zested. So yeah, so that's a little bit about our scones.
Yes,
And then
and
we
they're
have
delicious.
amazing clotted cream
Mhm.
from Coombe Castle. Oh my goodness. Their clotted cream is the best you can get here in the States. Unless you make it yourself, of course.
Right, and most of us don't, or at least I don't, so I was thrilled to get some, so
Well, it takes 24 hours when I make it at home, um, because I have to bake it in the oven for 12 hours, and then I let it
wow.
set in the fridge for 12 hours, and then
Okay.
it's a long process.
So it's good to buy it for many of us. Okay.
Oh, no. Is that me? I'm so sorry. I have my phone on silent, and it just
That's all right. It's
rang.
happened to all of us. We'll just blip that right out.
Oh, I'm
Um,
so sorry. Yes.
so we can experience this as well and not have to make our own clotted cream because you can get it to us. I remember when the first time I went to England with my mom and we had tea and then she came home and I think in those days at least that's what we heard is that you could not get clotted cream in the States.
Right.
So there aren't a lot of options for that. So it's really wonderful to have that come to us through you. So, well,
Mhm.
thank you so much. This has been great. I think it's really wonderful to think about, we get all caught up in the royals and the stories and some of the scandals and all of that, but it's really wonderful to look at this tradition of tea that
Yeah.
has come to us and we can think about it coming to us from Queen Victoria and the Duchess of Bedford, who really made it popular. And still today, it is an ongoing and very popular tradition. And even for those of us not in the UK and who don't have a tea shop just around the corner, we, thanks to Rose, are able to have our own genuine, authentic tea parties in our homes. And now we know how to serve. And if we want to add a little bit of a afternoon tea, we know how to cut the sandwiches and what kinds of sandwiches and
Yeah.
the 2-bite treats. So thank you so much
So
for
much.
coming
Thank you for
on.
having me.
So happy to have you. I will have all of your information in the show notes so everyone can find you And I encourage you all to try it. It has just been I just really am so excited. In fact, I was thinking I could show you the scones that I received, but I have eaten them all. So I'm sorry.
Oh,
That's how
you're
it goes
so
sometimes. Once they're in your house, you just hear them calling to you all times. So thank you so much.
thank
And
you.
thank you, everyone, for joining us. We're so happy to have had you. And be sure and check out Mrs. Bakewell's and treat yourself to some tea. Thank you. Hi, thank you so much for sticking around. I just wanted to make a quick announcement that Royals, Rebels, and Romantics will be shifting to a fortnightly format. In other words, we'll be broadcasting new episodes every other week starting in April. So I will see you every other week. Thank you so much for listening and watching. And I'm so happy to be shaking up history with you.